Okay, so we're going to start with the ones that I had to do over the weekend and go from there. And as you can see, now we're definitely getting into the part of algebra where it just seems abstract. But really, if you just keep going back, that you're plugging in points, you're plugging something in, you're getting something out, input, output, it really keeps it in check, okay? As far as the two things we were using, our slope formula and our slope intercept, so that we're putting these things into this. I'm gonna, it kind of just seems like we just got into this, but actually, as far as time wise, we're having to move very quickly always. But basically, I'm going to go through these and then have you a study guide. I know it seems like just a quick test, but that's kind of the way they want this term, as far as it is good to just kind of test small increments and do more tests, but they're smaller, because I don't want to get into graphing yet and put that on this test. So basically on this test, you're going to still have the function table, and I'll have a few of those. Remember where you plugged in an x and a y and you got out, if you put in a 3 for an x, you maybe got a 10 out for y or something like that. You're going to have those, and then you're going to have these slope ones, and then putting things in just the right form, okay? Not solving form or anything, or not graphing them, just putting them in the right form. And don't hold me to this, but I think the plan that's going to work the best is we'll have the study guide, and then on Thursday I'll have the video for you of the answers and your test, and give you some extended time on that. Not that it's going to take you longer than a class period time, but you may want to just look over those things and take them a little bit later so that you have a little time in between there. So that's probably what we're looking at for that. As far as this here, what you can do real quick though, and this is our first problem. This is finding the slope of this. So you're going to use this formula, and it's rise over run. That's why the y's are above the x's. But if you want to look at a quick graph, you don't have to graph these, but just to kind of get an idea, if you go to 5, 3, it's out there, okay? So 5 and I went up 3, and then this one you went 2 and you went up 4, and so you're actually going down. So this slope should come out negative, okay? It should come out as a negative slope. So that's one quick thing you can do to just kind of make sure you're doing your math right. If you want to actually graph them and count your slope, you can do that as well. So that would be, I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I went up 1, 2, 3. That's where this point is. And then this one was at 2, 4, okay? Which that should be more about right here. Okay, 2, 4. And so, if you're trying to count your slope that way, you could say, well, if I want to put the rise, I went from 3, this is at 5, 3, and I went up, so I went up to 4, so that's a 1, okay? And then over, you went from 2 to 5, okay, so you went over 3, and because it's negative, it's a negative 1/3. You could do that. I think that's way more work, but some students that really struggle with negative numbers could do that and still come out with the right slope. Okay, so if you're just visual and you want to do that, just count however many you went over. Just make sure you put that on the run, and then count however many you went down or up, and put that as the rise, and then make sure if you're going down or up, you use negative or positive. Okay, but let's do it the way the way the formula is, which I think is easier once you get the hang of it, but that way you've got that option there. But if I do y2 minus y1, okay, remember this is x, I'm going to call this x1, y1, that's my first point, x2, y2, this is my second point. These are always xy, xy, and so I'm going to do 4 minus 3, okay, that was y2 minus y1, and I'm going to do 2 minus 5, okay, and so 4 minus 3 gives me 1, 2 minus 5 gives me negative 3, and remember, if one of them's negative, the whole thing's negative, so it's negative 1/3. So that you could have came up with the answer that way as well. I think that's easier once you get the hang of it, to just plug those numbers in and go from there, okay? But that gives you the option of both. Now, let's keep going. And from a video standpoint, from my teaching, I'm going to be doing it as the formula. So that's what you could do. If you want to do it as a graph and check those and just make sure you're coming out. If they're coming out right, then whatever's easiest for you. That's always been the way I teach. I'm not you know, you don't have to do a certain way if it's coming out right. Now, if it's coming out wrong, you may need to go back and do them in the formula way, okay? So y2 minus y1 is negative 6 minus negative 7, okay? So that's y2, negative 6, minus, it's always minus, and then you plug in exactly what y1 is, and that's negative 7. So you end up with a double sign here, okay? And then x2, negative 1, minus, always a minus, and then x1, negative 3. So to change the double signs, that's what I would do next. Negative 6 plus 7. Over here is negative 1 plus 3. And so negative 6 plus 7 is 1. And negative 1 plus 3 is 2. So 1/2. Okay? Okay? Number 3. Eight negative 4, 2 negative 1. Okay, so there's my 2 points. 8 negative 4, 2 negative 1. So y2 negative 1 minus y1 minus y1. So it's always minus and then negative 4, exactly what y1 is. And then x2, 2 minus 8. Okay, so you're going to end up with negative 1 plus 4 over this. You can already do this. That's going to be negative 6. 2 minus 8 is negative 6. And negative 1 plus 4 is 3 over negative 6. Okay, now if one of them's negative, one's not, the whole thing's going to be negative. And you're not going to turn improper into mixed numbers, but you are going to reduce when you can. So if that's 3/6, it can reduce down to 1/2. Okay, so negative half is your thing. If you've got negative 3/6, you're not wrong. Okay, I don't want you to, especially if you're counting, if you're doing the counting, that's what it's going to look like. But you know, get in the practice of reducing that, because you don't want big, long, big slope things to be counting. So that reduces down to 1/2. And the whole thing is negative because one of them's negative and one of them's not. Okay? And then the last one, number 4. That's the last one of the slope. Then we'll do the y equals mx plus b. So 0, 4, and 2, negative 3. Okay, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so these, we don't have any double signs. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. And 2 minus 0 is 2. Now this is what I was talking about. We're not going to turn that into a mixed number. Mixed number does not give me a rise over run. We are going to make the whole thing negative because one's negative and one's not. So it's just negative 7/2. It can't reduce, okay? Now, the only exception later, if you see one that's like 8 over 2, okay, not that you're turning this into a whole number, you could turn that into 4, okay, a slope of 4, because that is reducing it down to 4 over 1, which is 4, okay? So, you know, I know that seems like it's contradictory, but it's not. The only thing you don't want is mixed numbers, like this one would come out as 3 and 1/2. That does not give me a rise over a run. In fact, to do the slope later, I got to turn it back into a mixed or improper fraction to even do it, okay? So that's why we're not going to turn it into a mixed number. All right? So those are the slope ones. But I would I would try to do the formula, just go back through those until you're coming out, until you're seeing, you know, I tried to mix in some negative numbers in there to give you the feel of that. And I would try to get used to that as much as possible. And the more practice you get, you can even go online and Google finding slope, you know, finding slope worksheets. And a lot of times if you do that, you get the practice problems. You know, if you hit finding slope free worksheets, you'll get the practice problems and you'll get the key so that you can practice them and do that on your own if you want to get some practice with that. Make sure it's the ones though that are you know, 2 points. Maybe even hit in finding slope from 2 points, okay? Because you're gonna, if you hit in, you know, you're going to see as you find slope, there's like some on a graph, there's some, you know, so you may want to hit from 2 points or something, Okay, that's what we're doing here. Now, the rest of the problems are putting things in a y equals mx plus b, which I think is a lot easier part of this test. You know, it's just maneuvering things. You're not solving anything. You know, you're just moving things around. So in this case, we want to put the y. So this is where we move the whole 2x and have it cut in line. Okay. So all I did was move it over here and had it cut in line. I'm not solving for it. I'm not solving for y because you can't anyway. You need to know what x is. And so that's where I stop. Okay. You just have to be careful with your negatives and positives that you keep them in the right order. Okay. Number 6. Was 3x plus 3y equals 9. Okay, so you're moving the 3x, having it cut in line. It's like Black Friday, you know. I always talk about cutting in line. It's like Black Friday, you know. You see those people, you've been in line like all night. Now it's Thursday night instead of Friday. And you see those people that are just kind of like wandering around and like, and then another rule that they break, you know, Black Friday has rules, is they get in front of you or they're in front of you and they start asking, what are you going for? And I'm like, really? Like, no, that's not happening. So anyway, I always keep that in mind when I'm doing these, is just remember, hey, it's cutting in line. You moved it here, it cut in line. Now, you have to solve for y, and so you want to get rid of the 3, not the 3y. You're not subtracting 3y because that gets rid of everything. You're dividing by 3, and these will come out even for us as far as over here. Your slope could still be a fraction because that's a lot of times what slope is. But negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1, so negative 1x or just negative x. If you put negative 1x, you're not wrong, but you want to get out of the habit of doing that. And then 9 divided by 3 is a positive 3. Okay? So negative x plus 3. If you have negative 1x plus 3, that's okay too. Okay? Number 7 is negative 4x plus 3y equals 6. So this one you have to add to get rid of it. So you have 3y equals 4x cut in line plus 6. That's a positive 6. Okay. Then I've got to divide by 3 again, same thing as last one. The only problem is this one's not going to come out even, but we're going to leave it 4/3 x. You're going to leave it improper because that's your slope. So you don't want it as a mixed number. And then over here, 6 divided by 3 is just a positive 2. Okay? So that's your slope intercept. Y equals 4/3 x plus 2. When we get into graphing on the next thing, these are going to be very important. That's going to tell you where to start, and that's going to tell you your slope. Okay? The last one is negative 2x minus 4y equals negative 8. Okay, so let's put move the 2x. Okay, and cut in line. And now you need to divide by negative 4. Okay, so that gets rid of that. This is going to be 2 over negative 4. Okay, so 2 over negative 4 reduces down. For one, the whole thing becomes negative, because one of them's negative, one of them's not. And then it reduces down to 1/2. So negative 1/2 x. And then negative 8 divided by negative 4 is a positive 2. Okay? And just to show you that in slow-mo, okay, 2 over negative 4, actually, okay, is the whole thing's negative, and then 2/4 reduces to 1/2. That's where I got that, okay? All right, so that's that last one. Now, those are the kind of problems that will be on this test. Is you're going to do some slope. You're going to do that. Let me put number 5 back up there and show you that these all they all correlate. meaning we're all going back to that input output. So I want to do this one as the input output so that you got another practice one of that. Like what happens when we put in X, what do we get out for Y? And so, doing this as a graph, or doing this as a chart, if I'm putting in something for X, what do I get out for Y? So let's put in a -2, let's put in a 0, and let's put in a 2. Now, what we have to do is, just like we did on the problem, is let's move the 2x over. So we're going to subtract 2x is what we did a while ago. And we got y equals -2x plus 4. That was your answer to number 5. But let's see now, if we plug in these numbers for x, what do we get out for the output? And this is how you're going to do these ones with the chart, okay? So if I put in a -2 for x, that's going to be -2 times -2, okay? I put in -2, and so that gets me out 4. -2 times -2 is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. So when I plug in -2, I get out 8. Okay, let's plug in 0. Okay, go back to our equation. Plug in 0. Okay, anything times 0 is 0. So 0 plus 4 is 4. Okay. And let's plug in 2. So, okay, y equals -4 plus 4. And so y equals -4 plus 4 is 0. So when we plugged in -2, we got out 8. When we plugged in 0, we get out 4. When we plug in 2, we get out 0. So that's how you do these. Plug in something, get out something. Okay, so you'll have a y equals something, plug in the x, you get out the y. Okay, and so these are points actually on a graph. I could do -2, 8, I could do 0, 4, 2, 0, and I'm going to end up with my line that I'll see, where it goes, the slope of it, and so it all ties in together of putting something in, getting something out, and then seeing that linear equation on a graph. Now we're not going to be graphing yet. We'll do that in the next one. We'll kind of finish up this with that. But I didn't want to put that on this test. I want to focus in on the chart, the slope, and the slope intercept. Okay, so those will give you some practice. I'll have some practice ones for you to do for your study guide here, and then we'll, like I said, that's the plan going forward. All right, guys, thanks.